Well, hi there. This is Jennifer Huff, and welcome to the Thriving Life with me, Jennifer Huff. So glad you guys are here, and I want to say that the Thriving Operating System, and I want to introduce my husband Adam, which he is live right now. So Adam is in the background doing the production. Say hi, sweetie.
Hi, everyone.
And so I just want you to know that he is in the background, moving and shaking and seeing your comments and helping us connect. The Thriving Life today is all about actually the operating system for thriving. You might think, what the heck is that? Well, I can tell you that you probably want to know about it, given what it is. You know that you're sort of not in it when you ask questions like, are the best case scenarios coming to me right now in a consistent way? You know, am I finding that everything I need is coming to me in a way that surprises and delights me? It kind of is better than what I thought. Do you find yourself having the energy you need and the sleep that you need that is so rejuvenating that you come from your overflow? Because that, my friends, is how you know you are in the thriving operating system. So, we're going to talk a little bit today about where you begin. There are basically three ways or three aspects to experiencing the thriving operating system as your norm. And around these here parts, we're not really interested in telling you how to do that. It's kind of like telling someone how to ride your bike. If you tell someone how to ride their bike, what happens is they'll get on a bike and they'll fall over because talking about it isn't the same as actually having the experience. So, there's a little bit of a difference. And by the way, for everyone who's joining us right now, please put into the chat or the comment field, wherever you are, where you're hailing from, what your gorgeous name is, and what your word for the day is. You know, or maybe what percentage or what degree do you feel like you thrive in your life where everything comes to you, you have leftover energy, you're just rocking and rolling, you're just in your zone. But in the thriving life, they're in order to embody like you do when riding a bike, you get to that point where it's like you just know how to ride the bike, right? You could do it, miss it for 10 years and you'd still be able to do it. But you wouldn't want to miss your thriving operating system for 10 years. You want to be in that all the time. So there really are three stages to getting to the point of embodiment where something is just, you don't have to think about it anymore. We don't have to have any intention about it. It's just a way that you be. Much like floating in the ocean. Once you learn how to float, you know how to float, you'll always know how to float. So how do you do that? The first thing that's always necessary is you have to activate. I'm going to use the example of riding a bike. You have to even know that there's such thing as a bike. You have to know that it's possible for someone like you to actually ride a bike, to balance, that it's not just for the special people. And you kind of usually have to have an example, like watching your dad or your mom ride a bike or the kids on the street or whatever, and really have an inspiration to, I want that. So it has to be available to you in that way. And it really helps when someone has the confidence that you can do it. That kind of opens up the pathways. The first step is activate, make it real. The second is calibrate, which means you got to practice. You got to actually get to the place where that way of being, thriving, which we haven't even talked about what it even means to be that way. What are the activities? What would you be doing to live that way? Why is everything coming to you? Why is everything in flow? Why do you never get stuck again? Well, that's all in the thriving operating system, but you kind of got to get used to that way of being, because I promise you, the way most human beings are is not thriving. They're either surviving. So let me define surviving. Surviving is kind of like, you get by every day, you just have enough at the end of the month. Your relationships are occasionally deep and delicious. Your love is probably the love of you is probably conditional, and, likely you have a few relationships where you need somebody else to be a different way in order for you to experience the love of creation. Meaning, either you have to change for someone else to love you, or they have to be what you need. And so in survival, you're definitely in conditionality, which, by the way, as we spoke about in our recent, Quantum Leap, by the way, had an amazing Quantum Leap workshop recently. It was just phenomenal. We'll be doing those a couple of times a year and coming out of that just on fire with lots of people starting to embody the thriving operating system. And that's what we talked about is one of the ideas, I think, in the morning of the third day, I think, we talked about conditional love. There is no such thing as conditional love, because if it's conditional, it's not love. It's acceptance and approval. So acceptance and approval is what we experience in survival. Okay. But in surviving better, there's a second level to survival. Surviving better, you catch yourself doing it, right? You catch yourself doing it, and then you're like, oh, I just did that. And then you snap out of it and you stop making uh, your love of someone else conditional. You just let yourself have the experience of love for them. And then you say what you need to say or do what you need to do in order to get your flow back, but it's not conditional on someone else's way of being anymore. That's surviving better. You catch yourself. But actually thriving is it's not a better version of survival. It's actually transcendent of the entire paradigm of survival. So, and if you're on this podcast and looking for a visa, you need to get off the podcast. So, thriving is different. Thriving is different. Thriving means that you relate to life in such a way, and it's not anything I can tell you how to do because it's not a mental thing, it's a beingness shift. It's by understanding the laws of physics and who you are in terms of the laws of physics. And I think it's really funny right now that in the chat, sometimes on an online program, people show up in the chat occasionally who are just, you know, struggling humans and trying to get some attention to their cause. And what I want to share is, first, you have to be a vibrational match for what you want. Which means if you're searching for someone else to assist you to get what you want, and you're attached to that, that's usually coming from desperation, and desperation is from a survival base. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. It doesn't matter how tall or short. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. The laws of physics are the great equalizer. It doesn't matter where you come from. The laws of physics are the great equalizer. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter any of those things. But the laws are consistent. And for thriving, starting to embody, like riding a bike, that everything actually does happen for you is a profound key. Most people, it happens like a colloquialism. That's how they listen to everything's happening for you. But the laws of physics say that nothing can happen except for you. It's a redirect. I'm thinking of someone who's in a lot of pain right now. And you probably know someone that's in a lot of pain right now, emotional or physical. And when that's going on, that is not about trying harder at what's not working. It's not about keep doing what you're doing and try to manage it. It's about making a massive quantum leap It's about it's really consciousness speaking to us in a redirect. And in that redirect, it means literally letting every way that you've been burned down so that you can face forward to look at the root cause and to transcend and transmute that. It might take a week, might take 6 months to become who you need to become such that you're never in pain again. Right? But the big thing about thriving is that it's an experience that takes practice. It's an experience that takes practice, my friends. That's the third piece, right? The third piece is you fly. Once you've embodied that, once you have embodied riding a bike, you can just ride a bike. You could even become a BMXer. You could ride motorcycles. You could, I mean, it opens a whole world to you. So imagine that thriving, that way of being, actually opens a whole world. So those are the steps. What I want to chat about now, which I think might really help, is to hear about the characteristics of what it is to thrive. Let's just open the doorway. Remember, the first step is to open a doorway. I'm holding my trusty little notebook here. I wrote some notes. Here's some characteristics of when you embody, and anyone can do it. I see a couple of people are thriving over there in Calgary, Alberta. So, first characteristic is everything that shows up is better than what you imagined. In the thriving operating system, you're not looking for intention to manifest something. You are the walking intention. And what you do is you change your entire beingness such that everything comes to you and you don't need to intend. You actually embody yourself like a cyclist. You embody yourself as a living magnet. That's different from, oh, I intellectually understand I'm a living magnet. That's not the same thing. Okay. The second is that there's no such thing as stuckness for you, or conditional love for that matter. Stuckness is not stuckness. Stuckness is a redirect. So when energy isn't moving, you're in other words, someone who's thriving would interpret the experience that someone who is surviving would interpret. So if someone in survival perceived a redirect, it would occur as stuck, and they would probably complain about it and collect evidence for it with friends. And in surviving better, you would catch yourself thinking about the thing that isn't working and worrying that you don't have what it takes, and you'd be trying really hard and forcing it. But someone who's thriving would be looking at the thing that isn't working and going, ooh, this is juicy. This is juicy. I think what I'm going to do is, since everything happens for me, and it's not actually having to do with thoughts per se, it's having to do with the entire paradigm in which you live. You see, you could think what I'm talking about, but thinking what I'm talking about is really a surviving better strategy. It's like, okay, I'm going to think that everything happens for me. Until you actually cellularly get it, that's why the journey is a journey. It's not one where it's like, okay, here are the tools to be able to just thrive. Go ahead. But most people are in calibrating to thriving. And we're calibrating right now. We're actually activating what's even possible. We're in the first step. We'll get to what it takes in order to embody it. But we're not there yet. There's no stuckness for someone who's thriving. There's only a redirect. Because if everything is happening for you, then even things that look like stuckness or sickness are actually redirects from life to have you slow down, to consider how you're relating to life that maybe is out of sync with how all of consciousness views you. How do you think about yourself? Who have you believed aside from infinite wisdom that thought you were a good idea? Did you believe your father about who you are? Did you believe your mother about who you are? How much longer are you going to keep believing them? When all of consciousness literally gave you life, they didn't. Life doesn't come from the parents. And so it's really owning oneself as a divine child of the infinite rather than as a child of our parents. And then you stop expecting the approval of people outside of yourself. You are approved for life itself. If you are approved for life itself, you don't need someone else's, some human fallible perspective to be a valid human being. Consciousness thought you were a good idea. The next is the experiences as someone who's thriving are not intellectual. It's not trying to think your way out of a problem. Thriving is really about being available to the answers, and the answers just come, and you're surprised and delighted. Further, to activate, everything that you experience is an overflow. And finally, there's a certain momentum that happens, and art is definitely, if you're creativity, especially if you're an artist or a musician, anyone that does that kind of thing has the experience of this kind of thriving. It's just, how do you make your whole life a work of art, right? You feel unstoppable. So there's activate, there's calibrate, and then there's just embodiment. And then you go on to the next subject. Maybe you do it about money first. Next, you do it about, your relationship. Maybe you do it on other subjects. Maybe do it about your body and about your health. So let's talk about money things for a sec. And I had a conversation this morning with a dear client, dear client, well, a couple of clients, but one of them in particular that I'm thinking of. And he's a very big thinker. He has lots of big ideas, which is always, fun to talk to someone around that. I have a couple of doctor clients too. They're big thinkers as well. And we were talking about money. And in the world of money and everything coming to us, in thriving, so we were talking about a distinction, because when you're working on big projects, you're working with big numbers, and it can really freak you out as you're getting to the bigger and bigger numbers. And it's the same as if you were just trying to pay rent and it wasn't in your bank account. So imagine adding a few more zeros, and imagine it's like promises and lawsuits, and you get into all that kind of stuff. So it'd be easy to freak out, right? It'd be easy to get into survival, and then you'd remember, oh yeah, I'm going to survive better. I can't think badly about what's going on. And surviving better, you'd react first. You'd be like, oh my God, look at what's happening. This is terrible. But what if, when stuff in your life is going down, the only reason you might get desperate is because the energy that your greater wisdom, your, let's say, greater entourage, your infinitely wise self, the perspective that part of you has, and it is a part of you, when it's excited about, when there's a level of inevitability about your becoming, your greater self gets exhilarated and there's lots of energy. And how you become is through those difficult times. You become through those difficult times. So imagine that as a difficult situation perceptively happens, you either get desperate, which is coming from survival, or you take it as a catalyst. Everybody breathe. You take it as a catalyst. What? A catalyst to grow bigger than the circumstances in front of you. So imagine that every time something happens that makes you feel contracted or difficult, you use it as an opportunity to be available to who you have to become, that this is the very thing that's happening for you, that's allowing you to be able to open the doorway to who you have to be and how you have to be in order to be receptive to that dream that's dreaming you. That's why, remember, it's the same thing as why people lose all the money when they win the lottery. So they vibrationally can have the winning ticket. So they win. But over 90% of people who win the lottery can't sustain it because they haven't become the person that can live with that much money. They don't know how to navigate. They don't know who they are with that much money. You get what I'm saying? And so this thing that's happened in front of you that's difficult is actually an excuse for you to become. And that's the conversation I had with my client this morning, who was definitely working on some big, big deals. And he totally got it. He loves the whole idea of how physics works and that life can only happen for you. This dude definitely has the capacity to thrive, to live in overflow. The second person that I talked to is a lovely woman who's been in our world for a while. And what's beautiful about that is she was talking about conditional love. Like, how do I build a bridge from conditional love to unconditional love? And you might think, oh, conditional love is surviving and unconditional love is thriving. But here's the thing. Conditional love isn't even love. That isn't even thriving. Conditional love isn't love. It's looking for acceptance, as we were talking about earlier, and approval. I need your approval. I need you to validate me. I need you to tell me I'm a good girl or a good boy. That's conditional love. In other words, I can't have the experience of creation through my own vehicle. I can't know that I'm a divine child of the infinite myself. I literally need other people to remind me. And then you get a codependence. It's not very fun, right? And surviving better would be catching yourself doing it and going and doing something to love yourself up. But a thriving person has the presence of the love of the entire universe within them at all times. Right? And speaking of love, a narcissist is someone who has embodied the belief so deeply that the only way they can feel good is if someone else validates them or does things for them. It's that, oh my God, it's like a jail. It's the worst. To be a narcissist is just so disconnected from the love of all that is. Everything becomes about everyone around you. And it's never enough. That's the problem. It's like a self-perpetuating loop. It's never enough. So just more and more and worse and worse. Right? I have a lot of compassion for people who spend their life responding to narcissists, choosing to do that. Because if I said you were a victim, then we're back in survival. Nobody's a victim of a narcissist. Nobody is a victim of a narcissist. You do have choice. But I can tell you that if someone is looking for something outside of them, they will never find happiness in a million years. Never. All right. What I would say is this: that thriving is possible. It takes practice. It takes community. It takes absolutely community. Because to embody an entirely new way of being, If you're not in a community of people doing that, you're in the world of dog eat dog survival. And in the world of dog eat dog survival, when you've already been surviving, all you do is get activated to how you've been surviving, right? And then you're in reaction again, and then you're trying to fix yourself again. And people who are thriving are actually not looking at their life like something to fix. They're looking at what a survival person would call stuckness, a thriving person would call an opportunity. What they would say is thank you. It's like, I don't care that this thing is up in my face. This is totally happening so I can be redirected. A thriving person just lives that way. They don't have to be reminded. So, and things like narcissism or OCD or depression or autism, you can thrive that way too. But the kind of work that we do is not that. That kind of issue, um, some of those issues, definitely you want to make sure that you seek professional help, right? Because this is paradigm shifting. This is This is present shifting. This is some fairly advanced work in the world of personal development. But sometimes you really got to know that you want to find some support and help in the world that you're in. And there's always support and help. All right. From there, my friends, I want you to know that upcoming we have an opportunity to come and join in that I will talk about next time not this time. We'll talk about next time around our community. And in our community, there is something called the Agents of Awakening. That's how you jump in. Again, I recommend it for people that are already surviving pretty well. If you're not surviving well, this is not the community for you. This is people who actually fairly consistently have examples of thriving better, and they have it all the time. But if you're not surviving better most of the time, that community will not be the place for you. Last but not least, I truly, truly know that anyone can have this. Anyone. It's possible for anyone. And I'm so appreciative of you showing up for our podcast, Ready to Rock and Roll. I'm so appreciative of you being a vibrational match for having a conversation that maybe opened a doorway, whether you're in our community or not. I'm so appreciative of you knowing and at least being available for a conversation. And for some of you, it's like, oh my God, I'm so done analyzing myself. I know it's possible to thrive. I can see it. I can smell it. I'm right on the edge. And we'd love to see you in the community if that's where you're at. I hope today has helped you. I hope it's been informative. And I truly celebrate your thriving life. I'm Jennifer Huff. Make sure you like us, you follow us, you share us with your friends, and just know that, it's all possible. Here's to having a very activating day. Bye for now.